Thank you, Madam Chair, and Prime Minister, thank you for being here. It's an honor to have you before our committee. And Madam Chair, thank you for having this hearing. De-risking is a critical issue. The last time we talked about de-risking in a full committee, in a committee hearing was back in 2008, but that was domestic de-risking. And that was led by the subcommittee ranking member, then chair of the Financial Institutions Subcommittee, and it was analyzing the impact of Operation Choke Point in the then Obama administration and the impact that Operation Choke Point had on consumers, small businesses, and communities. But that was a domestic look. Today, we're looking at the global landscape and the implications of de-risking at a macro level, and that's important. But those issues are similar whether they're domestic or international. The underlying factors of de-risking remain the same between those both domestic and international functions. And overly punitive supervisory and examination tactics employed by federal financial regulators can have serious implications. Take, for example, availability of banking services in jurisdictions deemed high risk, like the Caribbean and towns along the southern U.S. border. It's one thing if de-risking is evidence-based, an evidence-based response to illicit finance. And let me be clear, we support that. And I think that is, we have bipartisan support to do that. But when innocent people and legitimate businesses are being shut off from financial services, we need to take a step back. We should re-examine our approach to ensure that we are not lumping in the good with the bad. And the problem is this: the penalty for failing to comply with anti-money laundering regulation can be so devastating for financial institutions, especially small and medium-sized banks, that they turn to defensive approaches to ensure compliance. Republicans have raised this issue numerous times in the context of suspicious activity reports, or SARs. Many banks carry out defensive SARing to ensure that they don't get penalized. In 2021 alone, this resulted in over 3 million reports generated. And I expect that we'll see a new record set every year moving forward. It's through this lens that we approach Caribbean de-risking. U.S. banks are faced with a difficult decision. Regulatory compliance costs and the penalties for non-compliance are so steep that financial institutions would rather end customer relationships than run afoul of regulators. The result is large-scale de-risking and debanking for entire geographic areas that can sweep up ordinary people and small businesses and have severe economic consequences and severe consequences for friends, allies, and neighbors. And the question of the day is this: where do those debanked customers go? And I'll tell you, China. And these are our neighbors. These are our friends. These are our traditional allies. These should be some of our closest relationships the United States has in the world. According to the report titled Financial De-Risking in the Caribbean, which was authored by one of today's witnesses on the second panel, from 2009 to 2016, Chinese correspondent banking relationships grew from 65 to 2,246. To put it in another way, over an 8-year span, China gained 2,181 new ways to engage with partners in developing regions like the Caribbean. As a matter of American policy, why are we driving people away from our friendship as a nation and seeking a country that does not adhere to our rule of law, our concept of human rights, and our struggle with human rights to improve? So think about this. Our current regime that compels banks to overfile reports to not get penalized is actually driving customers in regions that regulators deemed high risk, underperforming or worse in the financial arms of the CCP, of the Communist Chinese Party. I would argue it is in the best interest of our financial system, communities, law enforcement, and the federal government to be able to monitor and maintain these global banking relationships and friendships. I look forward to hearing from the Prime Minister today and the other witnesses on the second panel. Thank you, Madam Chair.